To me, my X-Men.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Multiverse Fan Cast. Don't forget, if you guys are listening to us on the go, you can find us on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, basically anywhere you get your podcast. If you guys are watching us on YouTube, make sure you guys leave a like down below, comment, and subscribe for more mediocre content. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Paul. With me via the Zoom studio is Ronnie. Ronnie, how are you today?
I am doing fantastic. How about you?
I'm doing so well because it's been like, what, 3 weeks since we recorded an episode?
Yeah, probably close. Yeah.
And as per usual, it's been Ronnie's fault. It has not had anything to do with me and my terrible work schedule over the past 2 weeks. Nothing. It's not even my fault.
When in doubt, blame me.
Yeah, we blame you for things that happen on cinematic adventures that you're not even on. Like, comment, subscribe for more. But
Well, that's why it's my fault.
that is why it's your fault, because you're not there to defend yourself. But yes, we are back. And also, fun fact, fun news. We were, for some reason, despite the fact that we did not drop any content at all, we were Podbean's featured podcast of the month, which is for May. Like, how crazy is that? So we want to thank Podbean for not only sharing us with the world, but also making our numbers go up while we weren't releasing episodes. But we're excited to be back. We're going to try and get on more of a consistent schedule. I know for the month of June, I'm crazy busy. Ronnie's doing Ronnie stuff. I don't know what he's doing anymore, but
Always busy.
Once June's over, we're gonna have some more. And also there's gonna be a lot more content coming out. You know, Ronnie and I briefly talked about Wolverine and Deadpool when that comes out, or Deadpool and Wolverine, whichever order they want to put it in. Did you see, speaking of which, let's segue into some X-Men talk, because fun fact, we are talking X-Men 97 today, but we have to start off with the fact that not only did Deadpool and Wolverine tickets go on sale, but also they released the first look at the Wolverine popcorn bucket. Let's start.
That was the greatest thing ever.
I I felt dirty watching it,
Right?
and that was like
But
the point. And it's wild how this all started with the Dune popcorn bucket. You remember the Dune
Yeah.
one? Like
Yep.
that's what I can't.
Hey,
But you know what? Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jack. I don't care if this movie's not good at this point. I'm just having so much fun on this adventure that we're having with it.
100%.
They've done a lot of interviews, the two of them, with each other, like with People Magazine. They did a bit for it, and just the hype is getting real. At this point, the movie's about the beginning of June, so I think we got about 6 weeks, a little less than.
Yeah.
Like, it comes out at the end of July, so
Yep.
I'm off that week, just so you know. We're gonna go do. Unfortunately, they have a bunch of Thursday like fan events, and they're all sold out around us.
Wow.
Yeah, but I want that popcorn bucket. I want it in the
100%.
way. Oh,
What are you going to use it for
Popcorn.
after you're done eating popcorn?
Popcorn. Well, actually, I'm really upset I did not get the Ghostbusters one that they were doing. AMC and Regal both had a trap, like a
Yeah.
ghost trap, as their popcorn bucket. I know one was better than the other, as far as I was told, but didn't get a chance, unfortunately. Saw the movie, got to see that mediocre, low average film. But
I
anyway,
feel like all movies nowadays are like meh.
disagree. I am very excited. Godzilla Minus One just came out on Netflix, and it is considered not only one of the best Godzilla movies, but also one of the best movies of the year. So, I'm going to be watching that. We're also watching a lot more series at this point. So,
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully things swing back. You know, that's the big discussion is are movies and cinematic adventures, not the podcast. That's going to go on forever. But just going to the movies and the experience, is that really on its way out? Is streaming just going to take over at this point? And it's unfortunate. I will be the first one to be like, I haven't been to the movies in forever, because the movies are freaking expensive now. Everything's freaking expensive now. And I know I will definitely be in the theater for Deadpool and Wolverine, more because I don't want anything spoiled. I don't want to like that. And also, you go on a Friday with like the right people in the theater. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Makes a difference.
Oh God, still Avengers Endgame. There was nothing better than being in that theater when that hammer was lifted. Now, we're not going to talk too much about Deadpool and Wolverine because A, it comes out in 6 to 7 weeks, but also B, fun fact. Let's start off with a fun fact from the Fun Fact Fanny Pack. Wolverine was obviously in X-Men 97, but Deadpool was one of the only characters that they explicitly said could not be on the show. He is one of the characters that they were like, nope, caveat, which is strange. But anyway, we are back to talk about X-Men 97. The show just ended its first season about 2 weeks ago. We were originally going to record last week, but A, Ronnie didn't finish it. B, we got busy. So we're just going to be honest at this point with it. But for us, it also is always good to kind of give it a little time to marinate. We had a tendency, especially like when we were really dropping episodes like 1 to 2 times a week, which was a crazy time. We would watch something and then immediately jump on and start recording our thoughts. And we gave the original Justice League a glowing review when it first came out. And in retrospect, we were stupid and naive and young.
We still are, all those things.
That last one's a little. I find myself making more noise as I get in and out of chairs. Like I don't know when that started. I don't know when it happened, but yeah, there are certain chairs I won't sit in anymore because I can't get up.
Oh,
But
I'm the same way. I'm the same way. I'm like, that chair is way too low. If I sit in that,
not good enough.
I ain't getting up.
I was at the weird side tangent. We were down at the shore, and there was a chair that was too low, and I couldn't get out. So I'm like rocking myself back and forth on the middle of the beach, like a beached whale trying to like, stand up for the first time, like a baby taking his first steps. Oh, that's a lot of analogies. So imagine just that baby whale taking its first steps on the beach.
Baby whale taking its first steps.
Don't worry about it, baby whale. No, no,
no,
we're gonna get demonetized. But actually, fun fact. I know Ronnie, obviously you're enjoying the recording with me, but when I release this episode, I don't think I can do the music for the intro. So it might just be the intro with me going da-na-na-na-na, da-na-na.
Right?
I know,
you can't get in trouble if you're humming it.
The entire channel disappears. In fact, we've only been flagged about 2 or 3 times, and the worst was when we used the theme song to Agatha All Along from WandaVision. Like Disney jumped on it immediately. Like I've had to take videos down and edit out some of the footage because obviously our videos are much more expansive now. If you guys are listening podcast wise, that's awesome. We love you guys. But on YouTube, we tend to put in a little bit of clips and video and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the videos tend to get taken down if I have too much footage. Whoops. My bad.
Whoopsies.
But let's jump into this because this is probably one of, if not the best Marvel productions in quite some time. Let's start though. We'll go back in time to the year 1997. X-Men, the original animated series, one of the most iconic shows of the 90s. The 90s was a wonderful time for superhero animation between this, Spider-Man, which we'll talk about in a second, and of course, Batman, the animated series. We were eating well in the 90s when it came to animated content. Even things like Gargoyles and stuff like that. Like the 90s were a wonderful time for animation. Did you watch the original X-Men show?
Not religiously. Like I would catch episodes here and there kind of thing. So I wasn't really big as a kid into the superhero genre, really. Like
nerd.
Comic book, like right? Like Teenage Mutant Turtles, big into that. Like a lot of the cartoons that were on Nick and Disney and stuff like that, I was into. But yeah, as far as superheroes, not so much. So I would only catch things here or there, or if I did see the whole thing, it was later on in life, like streaming.
Mm-hmm. So for me, I remember I didn't watch it live. Like I tried to watch as much of it as I could. I watched Spider-Man. I watched the entire show on air. I remember I was watching like with one of my neighbors. We loved Spider-Man. It was such a great show. And for X-Men though, I distinctly remember that I had a couple of VHSs of it. So I only watched like the same episodes over and over again. I think up until they were getting ready to release the show, I binge watched a ton of it. And it's funny because like I was like, I didn't see any of this as a kid. Like I just remember 7 episodes total. And I know how those went, but otherwise, I will also point out that one of my favorite X-Men of the moments of the original is in the very first episode when Jubilee is running home and she runs by a sentinel hiding next to a building, but he's standing in front of the building. Like it's like a lot that he's standing in. So she runs by his giant legs and him, like the whole thing. And he's like, haha, don't be suspicious. I loved it. I laughed harder than I could have possibly imagined. But this show got announced. We were super excited. The general fanfare was huge. and especially considering they were bringing back not all of, but most of the original cast, which was
Yes.
wild. This show was so long ago. It was
Yeah.
almost 30 years ago.
30.
Mm, mm.
Because it came out in, what was it, 90?
97.
Was it? I thought it was earlier. I thought it ended in 97.
Oh, X-Men 97. It came out in 97. You silly, silly goose.
I'm
But
thinking of X-Men the animated series.
well, so X-Men the animated series, I'm busting balls. It did run from 1992 to 1997. So yes, it did. It's picking up where the previous show ended, but I couldn't help but bust your chops on it. So
Stop.
I know, right? But here we are, and the show gets dropped. I think they dropped like 3 episodes the first I want to say they did 2 episodes. To Me, My X-Men and Mutant Liberation begins on March 20th, 2024. The show ran for a total of 10 episodes. Ronnie thought 8 and tried to binge watch it, and he learned that it was actually 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Well, technically, it's like 8 because 8, 9, and 10 is all the same story,
it's
basically.
all
And
one episode. Yeah, I know. Part 1, part 2, part 3. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I call it shenanigans. Anyway. So the way we're gonna do it, we're not gonna go episode by episode. We're gonna go character by character because a lot of these characters have their own stories. Some of them take a huge backseat, and we're gonna
Yeah.
talk about that. But let's start. I want to start with one of my favorite superheroes of all time, and a character that they did.
Beast.
I do like Beast. He was one of the only good things of X-Men: The Last Stand. But
Yeah.
I have to start off. They made Cyclops badass again.
Yeah.
Cyclops was done so dirty in the live action movies to the point where like it's bad. Like rewatching them, the first
Mhm.
one is fine. The first one is fine, but he's barely in the second one. He dies 12 minutes into the third one, and like it's just kind of sad. But in this, just the first episode alone, that superhero landing that he does, and to me,
Oh, yeah.
and like it was one of the coolest moments. And then they made his powers so much fun. Like when he's fighting
Yeah.
the Mutant Liberation Army, and he's like using it to bounce back and forth, and he's like
Yeah.
blocking and then hitting somebody in the leg with it. It's really cool. And he goes through a lot in this. First taking over the X-Men, then losing control of the X-Men, and then dealing with the whole Madeline Pryor thing. So the only thing about this show was I had to explain a lot of it to producer Melanie as we were watching. Because for me, I have a very solid X-Men knowledge base. I loved X-Men
Yeah.
growing up. The 90s stories are huge, and we'll talk about it when we get to Wolverine, especially. Like they did a lot of things from the comics. And then they also took some things out that I was kind of surprised but they may address in season 2 because we are getting season 2. What were your thoughts on Cyclops?
Again, like you said, like he's a badass, and they finally made him one because, again, every iteration we've had recently has just been trash, to put it nicely, I would say. So it was nice to, like you said, nice to see him be who he's supposed to be. Like it's Cyclops. Like I remember, like as a kid, being like, I think he's the coolest and strongest X-Man there is. Obviously, that's not true, but at least that's the way he was portrayed when we were, we little boys.
We youngins.
Yeah, right. So it was nice to see him be the Cyclops that we all knew he was, unlike what we got, on the big screen.
I really hope that when the MCU rolls around with their version of Cyclops, that they look at this and they're like, this is what we want to do. Now, also, this is one of the actors who could not return for the role. Norm Spencer did the voice originally. He passed away in 2020. Ray Chase takes over, and I think he does a fine job. Like
Mhm.
he gets it. He nails it. We
Yeah.
have Jean Grey. Now, Jean Grey, there's actually 2 Jean Greys, voiced by Jennifer Hale, who actually did the voice in Wolverine and the X-Men, a different series. And she took over the role from, let's see, Catherine Disher, who does have a voice role in this show, but she doesn't voice Jean Grey / Madeline Pryor. What did you think of the Jean Grey Madeline Pryor stuff?
At first I was like, about it, like when it first happened, but in well, episode 3, right, is where we had like their little battle kind of moment or whatever.
I think so.
At
Something around
first,
there. Yeah.
or whatever you want to call that, with the Goblin Queen. I thought that was cool. So it was a kind of cool little thing they did with Mr. Sinister and the Goblin Queen, taking over the mind, and am I the real Jean Grey or am I the real Madeline Pryor?
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. I knew of Madeline Pryor from the original story, especially when she gave birth to Nathan Summers, who I knew was Gambit,
Yeah.
or not Gambit, excuse me, Cable. So like for me, again, some of these they were surprising. They're like, oh wow, they're gonna do this story. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, I know this story. I found the whole dynamic interesting, her and Cyclops, and like the two of them and Cyclops. And let's also establish. Let's. I'm going to ask you because I asked my wife, and I don't think it went over well. If your significant other had a clone, and the other was held in captivity, and you had no idea, and you had a relationship with that clone in the sexual way, is it cheating?
Well, seeing as how my wife doesn't watch the show
Or listen to the podcast?
or listen to the podcast, no, I again, it's a clone, so it has well, in this case, you're not sure if it's got the right memories or not, but come on now, you're not really focused on that, right?
I think we established that the relationship with the clone was not cheating, but once Jean Grey came back, because they had a couple of psychic conversations, that was cheating. But
Yes,
leave a comment down below. Let us know. Did Scott Summers cheat on Jean Grey with her biological
yes,
clone?
no, and then yes.
No, then yes. Yes, then no. All right, we're good. All right, going down the list, we have Allison Seeley Smith as Storm. I also loved how well they did Storm. Like
Mhm.
the scene where he tells her to like, I forget what he says, like either bring the thunder, bring the weather, or something like that. And all of
Yeah,
a sudden it'll stop and you hear them go, Omega mutant detected, and they all turn and Storm just wrecks house. They do a great job. I think they were limited a little bit by the animation in the 90s. 'Cause
yeah,
it's the first season of X-Men. It's the 90s. Like you can tell it's the 90s, even streaming it on like HD. But they do a fantastic job. And her story was interesting. Her losing her powers, finding them again. What did you think of
yeah.
Storm in this?
I agree. I liked it. If you had to choose anyone to kind of have like a side story, I mean, they all kind of do, but they was all like related to the overall story of this. But hers was completely, in left field or whatever with the whole losing the powers and everything. But I thought it was cool. It was a cool little side story to kind of give us something different than the actual story. Even though I know in the episode where she finds the what was his name?
The
The
adversary
like the
or Forge?
I think was it Forge, the one that he finds her at the bar in like episode 4 or whatever, I think
Yeah,
it
he's with
was.
the robot hand and all that.
Yeah. It was cool to see it. I think he was a little bit of a baby in that kind of episode with you lied to me. He's like, yeah, but I lied to you to help you. Like,
Because I love you. Wow. All right.
yeah.
Whoa, whoa. That was the only thing that kind of happened a
Yeah.
little oddly fast. Like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I love
Right.
you. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't even know your
It's
real
been
name.
like 2 days.
God, we had dinner once. Relax.
Yeah,
Stage one
right.
here. Run. But she also is voiced by Allison Seeley Smith, who does reprise her role and voices the role of the adversary, a character that I had to look up because I wasn't very familiar with the adversary. But moving
Yeah.
down the list, now here's one of some discussion. We have Cal Dodd reprising his role as Wolverine. Now, first and foremost, he does sound he's one of the few that sounds much older. Even like in the first trailer, when you first hear him talk, you're like, oh, I think he does fine with the role. It was very bold of them to not have Wolverine in the spotlight for a lot of this show.
Yeah.
Having Wolverine in the backseat, he does have his great moments. The fight with him and Nightcrawler versus the
Yeah.
Sentinels, awesome. And then obviously he does stab. Oh, by the way, major spoilers. I turned into a spoiler warning.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, sorry guys, we're well past that. I will
Too late now.
I'll put something in the description, or no, I'll put a graphic. It's fine.
There
So
you go.
prior spoiler warning. You guys knew there was a spoiler warning. If you're watching on YouTube, you knew there was a spoiler. Sorry, guys, if you're listening to the
Yeah,
show.
right.
But obviously, he does stab Magneto at the end, and they do the shot of Magneto, and it's straight from the comics, him getting the adamantium pulled from his skeleton. So I know, and we'll speculate at the end, but I know that might play into how they set up the end. But what did you think of them kind of backseating Wolverine?
So I'm curious as to why they did it. I would love to know why Feige and what was his name that was like the director or whatever.
Oh, I don't remember. He got fired.
Yeah. But I would love to know what they were thinking.
I think
Why
I can honestly say I think it's just because he's had the spotlight for so long.
I was gonna say, is it that? Is it because of Deadpool and Wolverine coming out
Like,
kind of thing where they were like, we don't want him to be up in front, and then you have this Wolverine. Um, well, I'm curious as to what their thoughts were. If you were gonna get the original guy and he sounded like he was, 60, 70, maybe you shouldn't have done Wolverine and you should have done like a old man Logan-esque
I'd
type
watch
of
that show.
character.
In all honesty, I'd watch an animated Old Man Logan show if they had the
Yeah.
same guy. They might, who knows? But I think he was fine, and it's the first time that they ever show in the animated series Wolverine actually stabbing somebody with blood. So,
Ah,
and they were able to get away with a lot with the Sentinels with him and Nightcrawler.
yeah.
All right, moving down the list, we got JP Carlick as Morph. Now, I didn't have a problem with them making Morph like changing his face so he kind of looks like the chameleon, like he's just, like,
Yeah.
and I didn't have a problem with him as a character. I thought he was a fine character. There's been a lot of controversy with him. Um, Personally, I don't care how one person identifies or how they love or do your thing, man. Like, I don't do you.
Yeah.
We don't care about that sort of thing. All right. But they made it a semi big deal at first, and then people stopped talking about it because, also this show takes place in the 90s. So a lot of the terms that we use now were not used the same way in the 90s or not used properly in the 90s. So
Yeah.
that's really addressed. The biggest thing is, does Wolverine or does Morph profess his love for Wolverine when he's laying in the hospital bed? A lot of people took umbrage with him turning into Jean Grey and saying, like, I love you, don't die. I didn't
Yeah.
take it as him proclaiming his love for Wolverine. They have a really good bromance, and I'm
Yeah.
cool with it. I just thought it was him trying to like encourage and comfort Wolverine in this moment of him like almost dying for the first time ever.
Yeah. I agree. It was kind of one of those like because of Jean Grey and Logan's relationship
Mhm.
that they have. Like it's almost like it like that's the person you love telling you not to die. It kind of gives you a little more reason, to live kind of way.
Yeah.
So,
I did like
that's the way I took it,
yeah, I think that's how they also wrote it, but
Yeah.
whatever. I did like Morph was a fun Easter egg machine where so I don't remember this from the original show. I didn't remember him being able to turn into other super powered beings. That makes him a
Yeah.
monster, like a
Yes.
a powerhouse.
He
So
can just beat anybody.
I know, right? I have a list of all the characters that he turns into. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Professor Xavier, Jean Grey, Angel, Blob, Lady Deathstrike, Colossus, Psylocke, Sabretooth, Spiral, Magic, Quicksilver, Juggernaut, Hulk, Mr. Sinister, Sauron, and Mr. Fantastic. Woof.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun, and it gave them a good chance to do some of those Easter eggs. So we really liked it. Now,
Yeah.
let's see. We have Leonore Zan as Rogue, also reprising her role. I really she interacted with Captain America. Like
Yeah.
that was so much fun, and to see her like really cut loose and use her powers, and also apparently a lot of the moves that she uses were from the Marvel vs. Capcom video game series.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it
Huh.
was that's a lot of fun.
That's
I
cool.
was not really too fond of the Rogue and Magneto storyline. Um,
Yeah.
it was weird.
Yeah, for sure.
The fact that they were like, you know, doing it.
Yeah.
I get it
Weirder.
because like somehow he neutralizes her powers, which
Yeah.
convenient writing. I'm not sure if that's comic book accurate because I know that they've had some weird thing. I know she was a bad guy at first,
Yeah.
but I want to talk about Rogue and Gambit because Gambit, I was heartbroken. The episode with Gambit, and again, spoilers, Gambit dies in this, and
Yeah.
it is one of the most badass death scenes of all time.
Yes.
Um,
I agree.
Gambit was so much fun in this show. He was always fun in the original. He was a fan favorite. There are rumors that Channing Tatum's going to actually portray him as he was supposed to in Deadpool and Wolverine. He's going to be back though. So jumping ahead, the last scene shows Apocalypse in the present and in the past. And in the present, he's picking up Gambit's playing cards. Gambit has been a horseman of Apocalypse. So has
Mhm.
Wolverine. Wolverine became a horseman of Apocalypse after losing his adamantium. And Apocalypse is the one that gives it back to him. So I can see next year that's the story. And
Yeah, I agree.
uh any additional thoughts on Rogue and Gambit?
No, I feel like they always do Gambit dirty. Like he's always the one dying or mortally wounded or something like that. Like he never gets a chance to be like an A-list kind of guy. Like he's always like that guy that's just like, oh, that's right, he was there. Even though like yeah, he's there and he's like the fan favorite, but then a year later you're talking about it and you're like, oh yeah, and then there was this guy too.
Mhm. But I think they did a good job with him. We're gonna speed through the last couple because I want to talk about Magneto and Professor X. We have Holly Chow reprising her role. Oh no, never mind. She replaces voice actor Allison Court as Jubilee. It's funny because Jubilee was a big star of the '90s show. She also takes a little bit of a backseat. I liked her and Sunspot. I thought they were a fun
Hmm.
combo, and the video game episode was surprisingly fun.
Yeah, that was.
But she's there and she does get her moments, like when she's fighting Bastion, like she her powers upgrade a little bit. So, and seeing future Jubilee was fun.
Yeah.
We have Isaac Robinson Smith as Bishop, who is in it and then he disappears for a while. He was really just in it to bring Nathan.
Nathan.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the
But
future.
a fun fact: the character's appearance creates an apparent continuity error with the animated series Fantastic Four, which apparently he died in it. Because don't forget, these shows all had continuity. Like
Yeah.
Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, and X-Men were all in the same universe. So
Yeah.
and we'll talk about that in a second. All right, let's talk about. Oh well, first I want to talk about Nightcrawler. We have Adrian Howe reprising his role. They did Nightcrawler awesome in this.
Yeah.
He was fun. He was religious. He was brotherly to Rogue, and just
Hmm.
like Nightcrawler is always a character that's never been done, in my opinion, poorly.
Correct. I agree with that. Yep.
And the sword scene, him and Wolverine. Like Wolverine's like, I got 6 reasons, and he's like, no, you have 9. I loved it. All right, so we have Magneto and Professor Xavier. Magneto voiced by Matthew Watterson, and who replaces the original actor David Hemblin, and Ross Marquand as Professor Xavier. That was tough. I've never been a fan of Professor Xavier in the X-Men. I think they did him well in this. The scene where he was like, "Wait a minute, I'm a super powerful mutant. I'm gonna put everybody in this mind prison. I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna educate you." That was
Yeah.
they for some reason they tend to downplay Professor Xavier and how powerful he is in the shows and in the movies even. But
Yeah.
I really but then Magneto shows how powerful he is by turning off the world
Yep.
in a speedo in the Arctic. All right, just for context. Like he's probably freezing, and he's just like, "We're done." And
Yeah. Right.
Magneto was right and all that. But so in the comics, after Magneto rips the adamantium from Wolverine, Professor X attacks his mind like he did in the show. And in the comics, that created a new entity called Onslaught, which is the most 90s looking comic book character of all time. It literally looks like Magneto on steroids. They didn't have Onslaught, which I was kind of surprised, but who knows? That could be a thing. I really liked Magneto trying to be good.
Hmm.
It was an
Yep.
interesting storyline, but in all honesty, he was pushed too far by just how bad humans are, which the
Yeah.
humans are the bad guys in these shows.
Yeah.
So it was so good. It's so well written. We did have a lot of other people. Obviously we mentioned Cable, who's voiced by Chris Potter, who voiced Gambit. It's like some of these, they brought back a lot of people, but they didn't
Hmm.
necessarily voice their same characters. Mr. Sinister's back, the Sentinels. We didn't even talk about Beast. Beast played by George Buza, and who reprises his role. He's just kind of the moral compass of it. And I did like
Yeah.
the relationship with the reporter lady. And
Yep.
I think the most powerful thing of this was how emotional everybody was after Genosha's destruction. Like that was hard to watch. Like it's not a this isn't a kid's show, unfortunately. Like I hope that kids don't turn it on going, it's a kid. No, it's not. It's not a kid show.
No.
This was a
No.
show. They did it perfectly because it is a show for the fans of the '90s show who are now adults. Like
Yeah.
it came out in '92, ran to '97, so we were about 5 or 6 when it came out. I think that's also why I didn't see the beginning of it. I know
Hmm.
like I said, I watched all of Spider-Man, And let's talk about the cameos. We had cameos from all sorts of characters. We had cameos
Oh
from
yeah.
Black Panther, who was apparently T'Challa, and people took issue with that because why
Yep.
not? Yeah, they wanted T'Chaka to be the actual Black Panther, but
Yeah.
fine line. It's a fine line. Like with we're still we're also reeling from Chadwick Boseman. Like as
Oh
we
yeah.
the second Black Panther, but it just was not the same. Spider-Man from the original '90s show makes a quick cameo, and it is awesome and super exciting. There's a lot of
Mhm.
fan wanting of a revival of that show. So who knows? Daredevil makes an appearance. A couple of other cameos. I'm trying to remember who else off the top of my head, but those are like the big ones. And of course, we have the bad guy Theo James as Bastion. Theo James is a busy guy. I
Oh
liked
yeah.
I liked Bastion, and he's a human machine hybrid created by Nimrod, so he's kind of a mutant, but kind of not a mutant. I thought he
Yeah.
was fine. I think it's good that they kind of used like a less known character. I think it's a smart move.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm trying to see who else were. We had Captain America, Iron Man. Let's see. Here are some of the actor or X-Men or mutants that appeared on Genosha. You ready? Blob
Mhm.
Herman, Pixie, Nature Girl, Gentle, Multiple Man, Exodus, Dazzler, Boom Boom, Squid Boy, Marrow, Blob, Forearm, Angel Salvador, Mimic, Psylocke, Cypher, Frenzy, and members of the Savage Land Mutates. That reminds me of the scene in Lego Batman where he lists all these characters.
Yes.
Like, did you make some of those up? No, probably worth a Google. But the show is fantastic. We're hoping for a strong second season. It'll be out.
Yeah.
Who knows when the second season? Did they have a release date for the second season yet? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. I don't think have they announced
Let's see.
second season?
Oh yeah, they announced the second season, and I want to say that they announced a third season too. But they did remove the who was it? Was it the actual blah, blah, the writer, the head writer? So they
All
were
right.
yeah, they'd finished writing season two, and he was coming back for a third season, but he was fired ahead of the series premiere. He wasn't involved in any of the promotion for the series and missed the red carpet event, which was unusual for someone working on the project, even if they've been replaced. Reportedly, he was difficult to work with, and his use of a non-explicit OnlyFans account was not well received by Disney. Because, fun fact, OnlyFans is not a porn site; it is a content creator site that just has no rules. So that's why it became a porn site. But there are plenty of actual people and actors who have OnlyFans that don't show no nudity.
Yeah.
None. Children of Jesus. Okay. So let's you want to start rating this one?
Let's do it.
I I don't want to give it the coveted 5. I really don't, but I'm trying to figure out why
So don't. Do
I want to. I want
you
to
want me to go first then while you
No,
marinate?
I'm gonna give it a 4.5. It is so good. It was so much better than it could have been a train wreck. It really
Yeah.
could have. And it could have been just poor because the nostalgia bait has not been working so well for Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
But this knocked it out of the park. I hope it opens the door to bringing back Spider-Man or doing shows for Daredevil. You could do a whole Marvel '90s universe, and I would watch that over Marvel's What If. So that's my thoughts. You go now.
I'm gonna agree with you. 4.5. Um, I don't think it's perfect because again, it's rare to get that 5. But yeah, it's a 4.5. Like you said, it's everything when it comes to comic books superhero genre is just scary at the moment.
Mhm.
Because it's been so hit or miss with a lot more misses than hits as of late. So it's like one of those like every time something comes out, it's like, oh, it looks good, but look at the track record. I'm not
Yeah.
putting too much stake into it. And that's kind of how I felt with this show was like, it looks cool. I'm hyped for it,
Oops.
but I'm gonna set my standard that this is going to be like a 3.5, 4 kind of level thing just because of what's transpired over the last couple of years. And it did better, obviously, than what I thought. Like I said, I give it a 4.5. A lot of things are there. I liked how it was still kind of the old school animated look to it. They didn't really modernize it to make it look like how things look today. Obviously, with certain things they did, but
Sleeker, very sleek.
yeah, but overall, it looked like it was a show from the 90s.
And I still never skipped the intro. Never hit that.
No.
No, it got us hyped, and also the intros
Yeah.
were some of the a lot of times they were different each time.
Yeah. I just
Um,
skipped the recap.
yeah, just the recap. But even that looks so much cleaner. And
Yeah.
it's when that theme song hits, man. But we want to hear your thoughts. There is no fan feedback Friday, unfortunately, just because I forgot. Let's be honest. Unfortunately, like we said, it's been busy. We've been having some scheduling conflicts, and just I've been all over the place. So I apologize. But if you guys want to participate in Fan Feedback Friday, I do have one ready for this week. Don't worry. You can go to our Facebook page. You can find us on all the social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and leave your comments down below if you're watching on YouTube. What you thought of X-Men? What are 97? Was it worth the hype? Did it meet expectations? Did it fall short? And what do you want to see from season 2? But I think that is going to wrap us up for today. As always, I'm Paul.
I'm Ronnie.
And we'll be back maybe in a flash.
See ya.